as Susan screams for the DJ to either go away or at least play some Dawn of Ouroboros. The others arrive. They insist there's nothing to hear. Susan starts crying, which immediately makes the men uncomfortable. Sabitha declares that it's a dead place, and Ian quickly jumps in to agree due to the quiet. But Sabitha's having none of it and says that that's not what she meant, but then completely fails to elaborate on that. Altos comes to a flailing Ian's rescue by changing the subject to a nearby wall. Ian gets an architecture boner again as he admires an archway. Altos is more concerned by the size of some nearby creepers, and as this is the BBC in the 60s, they're never far away. Ian wants to walk around the wall so he can take in its full majesty. Look for another way in. Barbara and Susan decide to stay behind and be more practical by getting some larger pieces of wood ready in case they have to break through the overgrown archway. Ian's okay with them doing some light collecting. He probably sees it as some form of tidying up, but insists they don't do anything too practical until he gets back. As he, Altos and Sabitha leave, Barbara seethes. I mean, who exactly was it who just caved in some gambling addicted brains and saved them all from a life of servitude and dysentery? Barbara asks Susan to describe what she'd heard on arrival. Susan says it was familiar and evil, but she can't remember where she'd heard it before. I mean, look, there's not been a fan of musical genres, but calling it evil is going a bit far. As Barbara criticises the density of the nearby foliage, a vine creeps over to Susan and taps her on the leg. She reacts with characteristic calmness.
Barbara!
As Barbara pulls it away and smashes the crap out of it with a rock. Very much in the way you'd smack a tabletop after a toddler had just run into it to help calm them down. Never forget, Susan is a highly intelligent product of an incredibly technologically superior race, and she's acting like a 2-year-old. Maybe all of these life and death situations are causing her to regress to a state of infanthood, because back in those days she felt safe. The doctor really should get her to therapy. Barbara calms Susan down and then starts working on pushing her way through the foliage. Honestly, between Ian's condescension and Susan's warbling, she's probably just desperate to get away from them. Barbara spots an idol on a nearby wall. As Ian reappears and chastises her for being practical, she spots the next key attached to its head. After insulting the artwork,
It's a big, grotesque statue.
she clambers up its very well-defined pecs to grab it. Unfortunately, she didn't see the plaque declaring this idol as a representation of the god "Grope all I can I will," the god of unconsensual touching. The hands of the statue move to grab her legs as the whole wall spins around. Ian runs to the rescue, but is too late. No doubt his dramatic timing sense was tingling again. As Ian frets about how to get inside and rescue Barbara, Altos spots the dropped key on the ground. As both Ian and Altos start to panic, Sabitha acts as the voice of reason, telling them that as long as Barbara has a travel dial, then she can just pop ahead to their next destination. And as she's smart, that's definitely what she'd have done. The idol turns back around, its hands open and hungry for more. Susan takes his time to glare at Ian as if it's his fault she didn't get an inappropriate blessing from that particular deity. Hormones making teens everywhere act like petulant toddlers. Susan, you're becoming more human every day. Ian decides that they should split up, Altos, Sabitha and Susan going on ahead, and him staying behind in case Barbara wasn't able to activate her dial. He also wants to go on the idol as it looks fun. Susan wants to stay with Ian, but he's adamant that she go with the others. Poor Altos and Sabitha are so keen for her to join them. They don't know how irritating her company has become for the teachers. As Susan and Altos disappear, Sabitha fumbles with the key and drops it. On closer inspection, she notices it doesn't quite match and is therefore a fake. Ian tries to convince her that there could be some variation in the keys, but she knows her crap and won't have any of it. Now irritated that he might have to do some actual work rather than just potentially enjoying some quality alone time with Barbara. After bravely rescuing her, of course, he sends Sabitha to catch up with the others and heads for the idol. Ian admires the handiwork of the hands before stepping up and clenching in preparation. He's grabbed and spun round before being let go. He appears to be in some sort of garden. He looks around, taking no notice of the incongruous suit of armour with an axe that looks really out of place here. Ian thanks Barbara and tells her he's glad she's still around, as they still need to find the real key. He's obviously not very confident in his own abilities. Barbara explains that the whole place is booby-trapped. Explaining that just after she arrived, the wall crashed down. Now, as no one on the other side heard anything, the outer wall must be impressively soundproofed. Or the collapsing wall was built to one of the great god jab light. After criticising the overgrown nature of the garden, Ian and Barbara try to break open the doors to a nearby building. When that fails, Ian goes off to a nearby shed to look for tools. As Barbara waits, a vine slowly creeps towards her. Someone opens the door, causing the vines to retreat. Ian's still busy playing with his tool, so Barbara grows through alone. But considering she's a history teacher, you'd think she'd learn from past mistakes and stop going on ahead alone. She looks up and sees several sharpened crucifixes attached to the ceiling. As the ceiling begins to lower and the horror of being penetrated by religious iconography becomes a very real threat, Barbara screams. I mean, she's already been assaulted by one deity today. Ian yanks at a pickaxe, but it's chained to the wall and causes bars to drop down, trapping him in the shed. Whoever thought of this isn't the brightest spark. They've left several other tools lying around loose, so Ian is able to grab another one and start levering the bars apart. As Barbara struggles under the net, the spikes move closer, now looking more like the feet of the dreaded god of cocks, Roosterophiles. It's a frankly bizarre pantheon they've got here. The feet of death are suddenly retracted, and a dirty monk appears in the doorway. Barbara doesn't know when she was better off. The monk asks Barbara how she got there and if she has any cheap cider on her. She doesn't, and after he asks her if she's a Vord, says he needs to inspect her travel doll to ensure she's been sent by Arbitan. Ian finally manages to pop his bar. Barbara's pretty much disentangled herself from the net when Ian arrives to help. They enter the room and see the monk has got himself into trouble while engaging in some sort of autoerotic asphyxiation. Ian hacks at the overzealous fine and pulls the monk off. He tells them the jungle is coming, so he's a dendrophile. He passes out. He explains that he watched them take the fake key through a system of mirrors, his carefully concealed trap viewer. He says only somebody warned by Arbitan would avoid them. But seeing as Arbitan failed to warn Ian and Barbara, of course he did, and as a result that they then fell for the old guy's traps, it's a wonder that he still trusts them. But he's dying anyway, so what the hell. Refusing to make it easy for them though, he simply says DE302 and warns of the darkness, a whispering, before finally dying. Not having a clue as to what the old monk's last words meant, Ian and Barbara go into the next room that's full of plants. Definitely a dendrophile then. Barbara spots a safe. And Ian immediately tries the code that they were given. As the combination only has letters, Ian decides the numbers must be the number of turns, because that's exactly how combination safes work. Anyway, refusing to admit he's wrong, Ian keeps trying it.
D, E, 1, 2, 3, O, 1, 2. 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 D, E, 1, 2, 3, O, 1, 2.
If they really want to get in, they should look for a post-it with the combination written on it, because there's no way the old guy's drunken sap-addled brain has remembered it. They eventually give up on the safe and start to investigate the rest of the room. I mean, I hope there are gloves they can use, although I don't think it'd be wise to just stick your hand in a pair without turning them inside out first, just to be on the safe side. Later on, Ian finds the old guy's diary. He's been experimenting with plant life, and not just in that way, creating a growth accelerator that has increased nature's tempo of destruction. That kind of dodgy science work, and his previous use of the term Vord, definitely nail him as an acolyte of Arbitan. Ian still refuses to believe that the jungle is of the whispering kind. He just doesn't trust the advanced alien Susan, or the stockpile of evidence collated by the old man, and much prefers to do his own research. In fairness, Susan is now a full-on hysterical teenager, and the old man's evidence is barely coherent rambling. As they continue to look through various books, they notice it's got dark outside. They then start to hear whispering and sounds like something is trying to get in. One of those books may have been the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. A leafy proboscis breaks through one of the boarded up windows, searching hungrily for something to suck on. More plants try to get into the room as Ian and Barbara desperately try to figure out the clue and find the key. A vine grabs at Barbara, but Ian pulls it away, rescuing her from a Bobby Joe style fate. Now it's Barbara's time to scream uncontrollably. Ian spots a broken jar with a chemical formula label. He realises the code must be on one of the other jars, so they start to go through them. Barbara finds it in what appears to be a jar of muesli. That takes me back to those days when there used to be plastic toys in packets of cereal. They activate their dials and end up freezing halfway up a mountain. They huddle for warmth as the icy wind blasts them. Maybe Barbara will finally get that goodnight kiss. It is another way of keeping warm after all.